Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Welcome back, everybody, to another bonus episode of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. Today is November 14th, and we are live at Dragonsteel 2022. I am Bill, and I am joined, as always, by my Dracopheric co-hosts, Amy and Jordan. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Man, that's a stretch.
I made it up, but it works. Latin, it works. You know what? I'm calling English degree on this one.
So. I had money on conventional. Okay.
Dracopheric, dragon.
Yeah,
Iron.
no, I got what you did. No, I followed.
Okay, I was worried. I was like, I did not hear that word right, did I? No.
Now, to our listeners at home, the people in the audience are very, very aware of this. To our listeners at home, this is absolutely going to be a spoilery episode because we are talking about our aluminum foil hat theories. We're going to ask our audience for people. We've had some people from our Discord send them in, and we've got some emails that we've got. There's some interesting ones out there. So if you have your own whacked out theory that you want us to talk about, please, we'll have a time set aside for y'all to do that. So let's see.
It'll also be our jankiest episode because we are not at our desks.
We are not at our desks. We've got no overlay.
We have one mic for us.
We have one microphone, so it's going to sound kind of funky. Yeah, should be a lot of fun. Of course, the episode is made possible by our patrons and listeners. If you want to help us out, head over to patreon.com/cosmerestudies. And just one more reminder, this is not a spoiler-free podcast, this episode in particular. I was
mentioning the Lost Metal.
The Lost Metal.
Not going through the spoilers of that.
Yes. So tonight, just if you're coming in with aluminum foil hat theories, we are not discussing the pre-released chapters of the Lost Metal, just because I know there's going to be some of you here who haven't read it, some of you who have. We want to just make it as available as possible.
And apparently a chapter dropped today.
And there was a chapter.
And we have not
today.
read that yet because we've been running the booth.
Yeah, we've been in a booth and running around and.
I will read that later tonight.
Plus, we were prepping for tonight for y'all to be here.
Yeah, so be grateful.
Jordan, how's the read along coming?
It's going to be going great in approximately 2 hours.
Tomorrow it's going to be awesome. Cosmere thing of the week. We're at Dragonsteel Minicon, so yeah.
This is the thing of the week and year.
Cosmere thing of the
Sanderson News. We're at Dragonsteel Minicon. So. And just check out Brandon's channel. He's got a Bing update.
He's an up-and-coming author. I think you'll like him.
Yeah, he's really good. You should check him out. I think he's at 18% on Stormlight 5.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's what most people care about right now. So, should we dive in?
Let's just dive in.
We had a new patron, though. Do we want to mention that?
We do have a new patron, and I'm blanking on the name. It's Sidestack.
Sidestack.
And he's actually standing right here.
Everyone clap.
I'm sorry. You guys have similar heads, so I was like, that's why I'm so sorry. I've seen like a billion people today. I apologize.
Hey, actually, real quick, who all here was here last year?
At Dragonsteel.
Raise your hands.
We got a couple.
Panel.
Okay, perfect. Who all here is already one of our patrons?
Wow, yeah!
There we go. There we go.
They're very enthusiastic.
Who here is going to become our patrons?
Jordan?
What? Oh, sorry.
Jordan?
Is that emotionally manipulative? Okay.
No, emotional elemency is not allowed.
Remember, you're selling the aluminum at the
Why?
booth.
What do you think I'm trying to do?
Oh, we got the
here?
aluminum right there.
Is he selling you faulty aluminum? Jordan.
He already joined. It's fine.
I did just up it, though.
Ooh.
Hey.
So, awkward. All right, so, Jordan, Amy, any particular theories y'all have that you're thinking of right now?
Rocks fall, everyone dies. Except I really don't want that to happen.
Whoa.
But, I just...
Whoa.
Why are you doing that to Rock?
Yeah, he's not even on Scadrial. What are you doing?
You wanted aluminum foil. There you go. Right out there.
For me, I fully believe we're going to be seeing Kelsier this book. And I think we're going to be seeing March this book. And I'm hoping we're seeing their reunion.
I would love that. How would that go?
intensely, as always with those two. It's going to be, you never call, you never write, you started a cult.
Well, the thing is, Marsh knows that Kelsey is around still.
I would assume so.
I mean, he's working directly for Sazed. I think Sazed would tell him he's a horrible liar.
Yeah.
We know this.
From Kelsey.
From Kelsey.
Yeah.
Totally reliable narrative.
Apparently, people who pick up preservation are all terrible liars. You know, it's a sample size of 2, but I'm assuming it's correct.
Sample size of 3.
We've got
Fuzz
at
wasn't
least
that-
4 people who felt preservation.
Yeah.
We've got a Vin.
We got Vin, we got Kelsier, we've got
Fuzz.
Laros.
Yeah,
and
but they
we've
didn't
got
try to lie as that.
Fuzz. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I like
Fuzz.
Fuzz.
Fuzz is good. I was literally, before we came in, I was listening to Secret History, and Kelsier was recruiting Fuzz, and Fuzz was very, very confused. Made me
like
so
it.
happy. It's a good chapter. But yeah, that's what I think. I think we're getting Kelsier, Marsh, we're seeing the reunion, and there's going to be a third wheel that's going to feel really awkward.
Amy, any in particular? Or you just,
Oh,
She already murdered Rock. What do you want from her?
I still like how we said in the title belt, our last episode. I still like Marsh met Marasi, and I want Steris to meet Kelsier.
I would love that.
That would be fun.
I
Just
think
to have
that's-
like the symmetry that way. It'd be cool. I don't know how and why or what,
Well,
but it'd
'cause-
be awesome.
Well, because you have the Kelsier brothers meeting the Marasi and Steris, the Harms-Colmes
Sisters. It'd be
I
great.
love it. It's a perfect symmetry. Now, we're not on Roshar, so symmetry's not as big a deal. But,
But still nice.
okay, so
What do you got?
the theory that I've got, I was going to do one, but somebody sent one in today that I'm just like, yeah, this
He
just
was
sort
like,
of blows mine away.
what?
Okay,
yeah.
let me find this. Jordan, why don't you vamp while I'm looking?
Well, while you're looking, everyone who's coming in here, thank you for joining us. We're really happy to be here. We're still frankly shocked this has happened because we started this podcast just because we wanted to talk about the Cosmere, and we're excited that you guys wanted to do it too. When we first started, we had no one watching us, no one listening to us, which led to a disaster in our 3rd episode where there were audio issues, and I don't exist in the
It was
episode.
half the length with just us.
I learned I talked way too much, and
And the conversation went on without you.
yeah, it was incredible, really.
No, it was just early jank days where we had all sorts of issues. We talked over each other all the time,
Yeah.
and we're working on
I've
that.
learned to be more assertive. Go me.
No, but to anyone thinking about doing content creation, the best advice we have is just start. You will suck, and it'll be fine.
But practice.
Yes.
The analogy I've heard is it's impossible to steer a parked car, so just start moving, and then
see that.
course correct as you go. Okay, so first off, this comes from James G. An email. The title of the email is in all caps. I have a prediction. And I'm just going to read it straight. He says, hear me out. The series is called Wax and Wane, and Wax is clearly the main character. That makes me question a little the reason to call a series Wax and Wane, when Wane is very much not on an equal footing as the other character in the title of the series. Brandon likes to drop breadcrumbs, and I think this is one of them. I think Harmony is going to re-splinter at the end of The Lost Metal. I know you all talked about this potentially happening in your predictions episode. Throughout the series, Wax has been referred to as Harmony's sword, or to think of it in other terms, Harmony's ruin. So I think Wax is going to pick up Ruin, not a super hot take, I know, but I think Wane is going to pick up and become Preservation, the shield. The idea of Wane being a god is just too good, and I also think too good of an idea for Brandon to pass up. Now, Wane doesn't seem super preservy to me, but I think that he also can mold himself into whatever character he needs to be. That's a huge tenet of the entire series, all the disguises and abilities to take on whoever he needs to be, so I think he becomes Preservation. So he says, that's it. I wish I would have thought of this before, but I think the idea of Wane becoming Cosmere knowledgeable and interacting with all of the other splinters is just too good for Brandon to pass up. So that one kind of blew my mind. I don't know that I agree with it entirely. I honestly don't know that I think it's going to happen, but I love it.
As much as it would like traumatize me to have bad things happen to Steris and Wax, I almost, if that were to happen, I almost wonder if it would be Steris getting Preservation and Wax getting Ruin, and then they
That
can
could
still
also
be
work.
together, kind of. But that's still there's big problems with that still. But that I don't know.
I just love the image of Wax, because they've said over and over, Wax is the sword of Harmony. Yeah.
I don't know.
So to have somebody, Steris would work for me.
Yeah.
Step up and become the shield.
But there are reasons that I'm not going to say that it would traumatize me too to have her become that. So.
But yeah, what's up?
In Shadows of Self, Tensoon also refers to Wax as Ruin's Harmony. Sorry,
Harmony's
Ruin.
Ruin?
There you go.
She says the Conjurer art is preservation.
Yep.
Yes.
All right.
However, in the chapter 5, or whatever chapter that Sanderson just read to us about an hour ago.
Okay, well,
No.
no, we're not going in.
You can tell us afterwards, but not
Okay.
right now.
We'll talk about it afterwards.
Not everyone has read
preview
the chapters, so some
any
people
preview
are
chapters
very.
are verboten for this. We just want to keep it for.
We're
those who
trying.
haven't
That's
yet.
why I was like, for reasons that I'm not gonna say as much as I really want to say them. So I know it's hard.
Amy's having troubles.
Yeah.
So
I'm super
we open
peppy.
it up to
Yeah,
general.
let's open it up. If you have an idea, come on up. Do you have the microphone?
It's on the chair right
It's
there.
on the chair. It's
Well-
as I said, it's janky.
We're gonna just go for it.
Yeah.
So,
Come on up.
Speak directly into the snow. Not directly, but towards
The
the
little
snow.
white ball.
Speak generally talk casually.
I kneel into it.
We don't. Jordan, did you create an altar?
I didn't mean for you to bow.
What?
My chair just sank a little
That
bit.
says the
so
Kelsier fan.
Okay, look, I didn't mean for you to bow. I did say it's not a happy accident.
It's just
One knee will do.
I know it's become a much more popular thing. I like to think I was the first one to think of it, but I highly doubt
No, you
it.
probably
You
were.
probably were.
I really doubt.
And you did it the best too.
I really do think that Wayne is going to become a Condra. I think because of his personality,
and then him and
but his changing
Sorry, like-
disguises, like his kind of
Yeah.
not really his mental state, like with the Stormlight character, but just
We
like
do-
his,
Well, Milan specifically said to him, you would have made a great contract.
yeah.
And that is, we do know it's possible to happen to Farukamis
Yeah.
at the very least,
Yeah.
because that's the
And
Lord
he is
Ruler.
terrorist by blood.
Yeah, so I haven't considered that possibility.
my little ship is starting to sail.
Well, another reason I think this is just because in Rhythm of War, Harmony talks about how he's trying to develop a sword and everything, and we all think it's Wax and everything because it seems pretty obvious. But what's always bothered me about that is, Wax would be like a sword with an expiration date. He's he's getting older. He can't do as much anymore.
He's married. He's
married,
got
he is
obligations.
So having a Wayne as a semi-immortal Condra, much more long-lasting sword.
Okay, so here's a fun thing that
I'll back
Isaac
up.
revealed to us during
You don't wanna
during
keep
our
punching?
interview with him. He revealed that just like we have the broadsheets in Era 2, we are going to have Wax and Wayne comic strips in Era 3. And my theory, if that's the case, is that Wayne started them. That Wayne is the first one to draw them. I can totally see if he becomes a Condra sticking around him being like, we got to make this happen. So I
make
love
it
that idea. And
And if he does, I love the idea of him making Wax the sidekick in.
Oh yeah, the Wayne and Wax comics.
Yeah.
I love it.
It'd be right up his alley. All right, who's next?
By the way, does anybody else think it's amusing that it's the Wax and Wayne series, but there's no moon on Scadrial?
Which I had totally forgotten that.
And I didn't know there was no moon until Bill pointed that out. I never considered it because, it was covered in ash, so I never thought about the fact there was no moon.
I never say the 1,000 eyes and one really big eye.
All right,
The nostril. Of
come on up. Whoever has a
I have a question.
speak up.
Do the theories that we propose today have to be lost metal related?
No,
No.
This is all sorts of aluminum
Cosmere,
hat
whatever,
theories.
yeah.
Okay.
Lost Metal is just the hot topic because it comes out in
You know,
In a
1
couple
hour,
hours.
42 minutes.
Yeah.
So I haven't been keeping up with the podcast a whole lot recently, so
fine.
I don't
Okay.
know if this theory has already been talked about on stream because I emailed it quite a while ago. But a while ago, I emailed a theory about what the potential shard plate spread could be for different radiant orders. And since color is very important on Roshar, I've been thinking that possibly Fierce Bren could be the Will Shaper
Could definitely
plate
work.
Spren.
For Will Shaper, that's an interesting. No, why is that?
It's mostly because they're purple and
I like it.
Purple, because purple.
because purple.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, fear.
really thought about
fear
that.
can be related to like willpower, because like if you're scared, you have to fight through it with your willpower. But I don't know.
What is their short saying? Look, I will
Oh,
forge my
goodness.
own destiny. I will.
Yeah, it's about freedom.
Yeah,
with
I will
Yeah.
seek
shapers.
freedom.
I will seek
think.
freedom. Yeah.
Seek freedom for others.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I would think it'd have to do something more, maybe with exploration or just sort of.
But honestly, fear can
Yeah.
fit into that, because fear is kind of the barrier to,
yeah.
to
Well, it's not
crossing those
The other
boundaries.
thing, it could be elemental in nature, because wind spren are, we now know, are the armor spren
Mm-hmm.
for oh my goodness.
Windrunners.
My
Windrunners.
goodness.
The words.
Blank. Remember the words. But the
Speak the words, Jordan.
yeah. And so if it follows along that case, there's a chance maybe the armor could be something like stone spread or something like that, because we know the will shapers are doing fun stuff with stone.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything around Venly?
I haven't noticed it, but to be honest, we
yeah.
didn't get a lot of Venli doing a lot of stuff with her powers.
Yeah, the only Spren we really see around Vinley, other than hers, is the nasty little gremlin one. That the Void Spren, who was
She
messing
was
with
far
her.
more restrained and having to be very careful with what she did. So that would make
Was there
sense.
anything that we saw with her sister?
Did we see anything with her sister?
With her sister, all we really saw was
Ulim or
blanking.
whatever. his
Timbre.
name-
Timbre.
Timbre.
I still don't believe it's timbre.
That's how it's pronounced. It's a musical term.
It's timbre.
Yeah.
Oh, we know. We
I
know.
don't trust. I don't trust that
But
word.
it looks wrong. It just looks wrong.
There's something hiding in plain sight, though, because we've already seen the wind sprint with Kaladin in the first chapter. We've
Yeah.
seen the logic sprint in, second chapter? First or
Yeah.
second chapter with Shallan.
I suspect that it'll be Flame Spren with the Dustbringers.
Oh, yeah.
Life spread with the edge
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We haven't had everything confirmed, but there's a lot that have been heavily hinted at.
Well, the thing, because I think you mentioned before how Green Lantern in nature the Knights of Radiance
Yes.
are. So having Will Shapers control Fear Spren
Ooh.
as their...
I would love it.
Oh.
Oh, don't
That
get me
actually-
wrong. As a Green Lantern fan, I would love it.
So
That
will
is,
conquer
yeah.
fear.
That puts it in better wording than how I was trying to do it earlier. I was like, I kind of,
Jordan,
related.
they're learning. They're
adapting.
they're recognizing our weaknesses.
Good pattern recognition.
Yeah.
Lies. Okay. So who's up next?
All right, come on up.
You don't have to bow. It's okay.
Yeah, if you just stand there,
It'll probably be
and
fine.
and enunciate, it'll catch probably.
Do you think we'll see Maraise in the next book?
I don't think so. I would love it though. The reason I don't think so is Kelsier is, I've said it a lot in the podcast. He has a very decentralized command structure. You'll go back to Mistborn. He didn't tell Breeze, okay, this is how you're going to do your thing. He just said, hey, I need you to make these things. And Breeze just has the full.
I trust your expertise. Make it happen.
There's the reason I recruited you so I don't have to micromanage you. And so I'm willing to bet Mraize is someone who stays on Roshar because Kelsier, to his detriment, trusts the people he recruits.
Well, and honestly, at the same time, I feel like if Kelsier saw Mraize and found out some of the stuff he'd done, he would be a little bit displeased.
Yeah.
So-
At the very minimum,
A little bit.
I think
the lift
kidnapping
situation.
he doesn't like slavery.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the buying and selling of people, especially children.
We've seen how he responds to those things in the prologue of the first book.
Yeah.
So
Now,
burn the house and everyone
A little
inside.
stabby, a little burny. You know?
I'm okay. I think Kelsier would tolerate the rest of the stuff that's gone on. But stuff like that, I think, would bug him.
I think that's sort of his berserk button.
Yeah, and I think he'd be like, you've earned some micromanagement.
Well, especially
Guess what?
because it's a young girl.
Yeah.
So I
who
can
is
see him
very-
going.
with a young
then-
girl with dark hair and who is an orphan. I'm sorry. This
Just-
is going
just-
to remind
I mean,
him of someone
we
he
did an
cares about.
episode comparing them. So yeah.
Who?
Venom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Ven and Lift, the person I cosplayed and the person I would like to cosplay, but I feel like I'm too old to cosplay.
There was
so
an
that's fine.
awesome lift who was walking
There was
around
a
with
I
a
really
dragon.
know
walking
she had
around.
like
You guys should check it out.
Yeah, she was eating pancakes. It was great.
Now, what I will say, I do think we're going to see some signs, at least, of the Ghost Bloods.
Because I mean,
Like-
Eatil or something maybe.
I don't even know if it's. I just think that there will be some representation. It may not be any of the characters that we've seen on Roshar, but I think there's going to be signs of it.
Somebody.
Because we're on Scadrial. This is,
Yeah. Now,
the home base.
So for those who maybe haven't listened to us, we just had an episode. We did something called the Rhythm of, or not Rhythm of War.
The title belt.
The title belt.
Lost Metal title.
Where people put forward predictions. One of the predictions that I really liked was someone put forth the prediction that Telson would be trying to get recruited by the Ghost Bloods and might succeed. And I would like that.
Or maybe recruited not because she's trying, but it just happens.
Yeah.
Because she's kind of important.
She's kind of creepy.
Yeah. The one thing I do say, I don't think they're going to be cushy with the set because the set are working against Scadrian interests. And there's one thing Kelsier is working towards. It's making sure Scadrial doesn't almost get destroyed again.
Yeah. It's kind of important too.
Yeah. All right.
So I've got another one that I came up with.
Okay.
So you know how we've talked about, with Era 3, we know that it's going to be a 1980s level of technology, and there's sort of a Cold War going on.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the speculation has been that it's between Northern Scadrial and Southern Scadrial. What if it's between Scadrial and Roshar?
I'd be cool.
I can totally imagine there being a Cold War between Scadrial and Roshar.
I was actually thinking it was going to be between the city-states. So between Elendel Basin
And the outer.
And outer.
well, the city specifically that they visited in Alway.
New Saren.
Yeah.
Oh, Olive Law.
Or
You mean
Bands
Bands
of
of
Morning?
Morning?
Yes.
Yeah, New Saren.
Yeah.
New Saren, yeah.
And so I think it's because the conflict that they already set up in the party.
It's very possible.
Yeah.
It would give up too much of what would have to happen in Stormlight 5.
That's the worry. But that's why I'm thinking, I think it'd be kind of cool if Brandon dropped like a little hint of some sort of connection with Roshar at the end of this book.
Well, so there's something.
Shouldn't that be Aerofor?
So here's the thing. Brandon's, I think we all agree Brandon's a fairly talented writer. So there's something interesting that happens. I think it was Hitchcock who talked about how, suspense is no.
If there's a bomb under the table and it doesn't go off, that's suspense.
Yeah, that's suspense.
And if it does go off, that's action.
And so,
If it goes off and you don't tell anybody.
yeah, if he drops something that tells us that something is going to happen in Stormlight 5, but we don't know how it's going to happen, there's a tension there. Someone once made the comparison, watching episodes 1 through 3 of Star Wars, if you don't know what happens in 4, 5, and 6, this entire story with this weird kid makes no sense. Why are we focusing on this one kid? And he's clearly evil. Why are they making him a Jedi? This makes no sense. But because we know who he becomes, there's this tension of how.
I had a friend.
Yes.
I had a friend who hadn't seen the original trilogy, and he watched the Phantom Menace. And after it was over, they were talking about how cool Anakin was. He's just like this kid, this pure-hearted kid and everything, just loving it. And it's just one of those, you look at him, you're just like, oh, honey.
Oh, just you wait.
It's just, but yeah.
So, yeah, come on up.
If we were thinking about concepts of like a Cold War, the only reason that really happened was the promise of mutually assured destruction. Do we think that there's a Cosmere equivalent to nuclear war?
Well, we've already seen Anti-Light.
Yes,
and how destructive that was on Roshar, and we know how destructive Et-Metal is. We know what were the tribe that tried to get to the bands?
The Malwish.
No, but there's the Hunters. The Hunters. That we know that they came with bombs because Suit armed them.
Yeah.
So we already have city levelers, or at the very least castle levelers. So they work that technology. You could start getting something pretty potent. And Anti-Light is already pretty potent. Yeah. So you have that. Someone else pointed out something that we could get something else from the 1980s era. And we could get a Mist Mullets. And
oh, no. Speaking of mutually assured destruction,
exactly.
No.
I'm just going to say no.
My theory for Mist
Come on up.
Mist Attire.
I was just saying, my theory for Mist Attire for Era 3 was down
Missed denim jackets.
Oh my goodness, I'm not looking forward to sewing that.
That's where fringes in the 80s came from.
I knew it.
So I was at the Mistborn
it.
photo shoot or photo cosplay thing, and there was someone who's like, you know what, I'm gonna take Brandon at his word with the 80s, and she had like the bright fluorescent mist cloak. It was amazing.
I love it.
I want David Bowie mist
And I was
cloak.
like, oh my goodness, 80s, and she's like, yes, and I'm like, sweet. So anyway, that's the other fun take on it that I saw.
How do you think they're going to invent neon?
Neon? How are they gonna
Well,
invent
To
neon?
have those specific colors and everything, because that's really how.
I do not know that part
We
of
know they have
textiles.
vacuum tubes because they talk about that for some of the light bulbs and stuff. So if they have vacuum tubes, neon lights aren't too far behind actually.
Well, especially with et metal devices, you know, like what if they sped up time in these little tubes or something, and just had these tiny little things so that something funky's going on. I don't know what. You got this special effect. It is a completely mundane and reckless use of time dilation, but it'll look pretty awesome.
It looks pretty.
All right.
So first, running with the mist fashion, we came to the conclusion that Elvis is actually a Mistborn with those tassels. on
Okay.
the-
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
And the coif, yeah. It's,
Yeah, exactly. But going back to the Emperor's Soul, the 10th anniversary edition, there's
Nice.
a great scene at the end.
Yes.
But thinking of the stamps and that whole system of magic, it's a real possibility that exists and that there's a character that we've met that is actually just a fabrication, which is something I've been thinking a lot about since we were reading through the Emperor's Soul, that there's potential for Brandon to put characters into these stories that don't even actually have to be alive anymore, because it's been proven that
you can bring them
somebody
back.
could be recreated.
Not necessarily physically, but like an empty shell of them. And you bring cloning into the whole...
Yeah.
Physical recreation with Conjuras.
Yeah.
Huh.
And then the ending of Bands of Mourning.
Yeah.
And then you have the Cold War and all the
No.
spies, and oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yes. The popular theory of how they bring him back is using his bones in a mist wraith. Now they'd have to find themselves a spare mist wraith. Those are kind of hard to come by.
Yes, they're gone at this point.
Yeah, but the thing that you could do is you could soul stamp something, and you could do some interesting things. There was a word of Brandon I saw recently that I had never considered. You could soul stamp a metal to be a different metal, and
he
it's
has said that.
Yeah, and
possible.
what would you do? And it's like, well, as soon as you started burning it, it would burn away the stamp, which then would ruin
Pervert
the
it.
effect. But that wouldn't exclude it from Farukami.
Well, and also, if it's a metal such as aluminum or duralumin, which is burned instantaneously,
Yes, there might be a way
I think
around it.
there's a use for it.
I believe we've gotten a word of Brandon saying that invested objects tend to reject stamps faster.
It's
so
yes.
Yeah, they.
metal mind, you probably not.
Probably wouldn't be the best metal mind, but could be something in a pinch. I've wanted for a while a story where we start crossing things over, and it'd be interesting to get someone who could do soul stamping with a Farukamist who they specifically put in a cell where said, okay, don't let them have that, and then they cheat and get that.
No, I've said a few times the conversation that I want to have happen is Shalon, Wax, and Shy in a room together.
You mean
Because
Wayne?
Wayne, yeah. Shalon, Wayne, and Shy in a room together. Because these are the people who change who they are. And I would just love to see them swapping notes and all that kind of stuff. I think it would be so good.
And Boyd.
Hoyt is something else entirely.
And Hoyt and Shy may not be so great with each other because of,
I love seeing Hoyt chat with anyone. Those are always my favorite scenes. So,
Hiram, I think you had something.
So I'm gonna bring up a lob from just a little while ago, 10 years.
Okay.
It's asked, what about a Lurasium savant? Or would that require so much Lurasium that the person attempting it would become, or ascend to become the new Shardlord or new vessel?
right.
Brandon, basically, this is what Ascension is. So bringing that into Lost Metal, we've seen that label before for ATM. Oh no, big surprise, get with fandom.
But Lurasium is also lost. You're right.
That's true.
I've thought about that.
So do we think that in the next book, if Harmony does split, would the cause of it be somebody becoming a savant of either Lerasium or Atium ascending to that shard?
Burning enough of it.
While he's still there, you mean?
While he's still there.
That's a horrifying image.
Well, the thing is, we do know the burning.
He just bowed.
Yes, but not through any physical means that we know of. And yeah, it's
so
it's
for
very
the people
difficult.
for the people who couldn't hear that it was you can get
Lerasium
and Atium from Et Metal, but we haven't figured out how.
Yeah, in that word of Brandon, he specifically says not through any mechanical means that we know of. So.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That would probably be somewhere in either the spiritual realm or the cognitive realm.
I bet Navani could do it.
True.
That's my girl.
No, but
3 months alone in a room. Yeah, that would.
And a whole lot of motivation.
And a whole little, all their little minions.
Uh-huh.
We make this happen.
And a whole lot of metal.
I would love to see Navani playing on Scadrial. Oh, that would be
I think
fun.
she's a little busy, unfortunately.
I'd also love to see Navani in Silverlight. I'd love to just see Silverlight. So.
One day.
I think we just love to see Navani on the
I'd like to see Navani in the Rhythm Tis too.
I just want to see more Navani.
If only
She's just
it
great.
was Cosmere.
All right, who's next? All right.
Do you think Shallan's going to make like a rival of the Ghost Bloods out of spite against Mraize?
The Blood Ghosts.
I think somehow, this is just instinct. I think somehow Shallan is going to end up taking over.
At least on the Rosharan.
Yeah, on the Rosharan side.
Branch. She's going to be the new Mraize.
She strikes me as the type because she's now pulled in Veil into her personality, the pragmatism.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my favorite comic book characters is Red Hood, Jason Todd Robin from the Batman comics. He breaks bad for a while. And one of the things he says is that you can't stop crime. You can only control it. And I see Shallan as someone who, if things get bad enough, she might say, the best solution is to end these people and take it over. Because leaving it in the hands of other people is far too dangerous.
She also doesn't really like to control things, though.
She doesn't.
Behind the scenes, so.
She doesn't, but
Radiant does.
Yes.
And I mean, it's not like she couldn't make another thing, another aspect to fill that role.
And so I just feel like somehow that's the more, I think it's the more interesting place to leave her character. Is stuck in charge of an organization
that she has no idea
she wants to, I can't dismantle this completely. This is the safest thing to do now, but now she's trapped in it.
Because if she dismantles it, somebody will come in to fill the void, and she has no control over that. She'd rather.
And I would love to see her doing this weird dance with Kelsier.
Yeah. but didn't she just send a very antagonizing message to Kelsier? So would he want? Well,
But if he did that, then he has to react. But if she says I'll play ball, he's like, okay, interesting. We're now in business.
Mm-hmm. I can see basically anything she does. I can see Kelsier being incredibly amused and intrigued.
Yeah.
And especially with Kelsier probably not being too happy with Mraize with everything he's been doing, he would be willing to replace him in his current role.
I just think it sets up a far more interesting setup going into the second era of Stormlight.
It'll also be interesting, though, because she's friendly with Hoyd, and Kelsier is decidedly not. So.
Well, look, I've told you, everyone knows my theory of how this ends between Kelsier and Hoyd, with them somehow messing up each other's plans so much that they have set up something where the other one cannot succeed without the other one succeeding.
They have to, and we get the buddy cop movie that we wanted.
We get the angry, bitter marriage of two really old people who are
forever tied.
Yeah, forever tied until they both get what they want, because they've so muddied. If Kelsier's done anything, it's muddy up the affairs of people who should be far above who he is, who know way more than him and have way more power than him. It's what he does. If Hoyd has proven he can do anything, it's just be the absolute fly in everyone's ointment, and they deserve each other.
It's basically the Macbeth and Demona from Gargoyles. but they're linked to each other and they hate each other.
Yeah.
It's like the two grumpy old men.
And that's what I want. I want two grumpy old men.
I want Statler and Waldorf. They can play Kelsier and Hoyd.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that is hilarious that your theory that Kelsier was the leader of the Ghost Bloods was true.
As soon as Brandon said, because someone asked him what type of organization would he join in the Cosmere, and he said the Ghost Bloods, and he'd be running them within a month. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, I don't think he's joking. That it just triggered my Brandon sense. I'm like, I think he's being serious.
So I know we talked about Laurasium being the Lost Metal. Do we think about Harmonium being the Lost Metal?
They have Harmonium.
It's at metal.
Is that metal?
Yes, at metal is Harmonium. So.
But it's from the Southern Scatterians. That's what they call it.
It's
totally fine.
What if it is split and so Harmonium becomes lost? Ooh. I need one of those hats right now because.
Sorry, I don't have a.
No.
The other thing that's out there, for those of you who don't go deep diving into the lore, Brandon has been talking a lot about how what bugged him in the original Mistborn is why can anyone burn Laurasium, but only Mistborn can burn Atium. And they are discussing retconning it into what actually was happening was the Atium Electrum alloy, that somehow Laris mixed that.
Now, one thing that is interesting about that, though, I mentioned that to Isaac when we were talking about him to him the other night, and he was like, I haven't heard that.
Yes.
So I'm not quite ready, because this is the guy who creates the symbols for the metals.
Yes.
So.
He should know.
So, Laurasium is Laris's, obviously, preservation's god, and Allomancy is preservation's thing.
Yes.
Atium is ruins, and Atium, therefore, can only be burned by someone who has, is an Allomancer, because Allomancer thing is burning metal.
Yeah, this is something that doesn't bug me too much.
Yeah, me either.
You can't burn Atium unless you're Mistborn or an Atium Mistborn. That track's fine.
Yeah, for me personally, but apparently because this was Peter Ahlstrom, who's Brandon's main editor, who was talking about it and the conversations he and Brandon were having. He said this bugged Brandon. So I don't know why it bugs Brandon. Brandon's missing with bigger pieces than we could ever know. So
and we know that Brandon is not above retconning things that bug him because he did change the ending for Words of Radiance.
Yeah. Yes.
So in a later publication.
I think the other direction you could not retcon that in is then you could have mistings to burn other god metals.
That would be the theory.
That would be the other one.
Because basically what it would mean is all those Atium mistings we got at the end of the book were actually Electrum mistings.
Yeah. Yeah, Mike, and that's a reasonable change.
Yeah, but we'll see.
All right, my theory is one that I've been trying to...
Can you speak up?
Come up closer.
My theory is one I've been trying to piece together while we're talking, and it's...
I know you need to kneel. Why is everyone kneeling?
No, you can stand.
You can stand.
So
no, we're going in the wrong direction. Rise, my son.
So my theory.
Whoa! Not the cult. Not the cult. Oh, sorry.
Not a cult.
Sorry.
Not a cult.
Definitely not a cult.
Not the cult of the Badger.
Since we're in Shallan land, and part of the big theories for Stormlight 5 is that her mom is one of the heralds.
Yes.
Stick with me.
I am on this train so hard.
It makes
That's
me.
not the train I'm going. I'm taking it on a different rail.
I'm still on the train.
Let's see this.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. My theory is that Shallan is the herald, and she broke herself because what she saw on the floor was blood. A shard blade would not cause blood. A shard blade would burn out eyes and destroy everything. So my theory is that because the sword no one's discussed the sword disappearing as well, the herald sword. So we know that when remind me of the herald that came back.
Talm.
When Talm came back, his sword came back with him.
Yes.
So in theory, the sword would disappear if a herald disappeared as
So
well.
you're saying that she died before Shalom was born, and Shalom was born as...
No, I'm saying that all of it is part of her psychosis around being a herald, and she slowly created this child for herself, and then she is able to slowly manifest and transform into it. I just am thinking...
Their appearances aren't fixed, because they're cognitive shadows. I don't think their appearances are fixed. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think also the fact that she can shift and change, and the fact that the Sprin were attracted to her has more to do with the weirdness in her life. And it's always bothered me that there's been blood in her flashbacks about both her mother and the
Well, what it
boyfriend.
was in the boyfriend or whoever it was.
There's a reason for the blood.
Yeah, that could have been as simple as she cut her twice.
Yeah,
With
like
what
she,
knife?
Shardblade.
But any Shardblade would just kill the arm.
No, you kill the person and then
You
you
kill
cut it
the
again.
person.
It can
and then
cut
the
out.
and the blood
okay.
keeps coming out.
It would still bleed.
But wouldn't she
It's-
disappear
Slow down.
if she died?
Wait.
One piece at a
It
time.
makes my head trippy.
No, wait, the blood though, I always thought, because it wasn't just her mom, it was her mom and the other
And the
Skybreaker.
guy, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was her dad who was killing the other guy. So I assumed he had a knife.
So you don't think it was her blood?
I don't think it was her blood, and then Shallan just used testament on her
Yeah.
mother, which was.
Okay, question.
Donna, hopefully.
Yeah.
Are we going into book 5 prologue?
I personally am okay with book. Is there anyone here who hasn't read book 5 prologue?
Okay.
I haven't read all of it.
Okay. Do you have issue if we go into it? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that kind of cemented the Chanarach is the mother, because they specifically said at that point, one of us has died. A herald has, so the heralds recognized that one of them had died, and it lines up time-wise with when Shallan killed her mother.
Yeah.
Because the other reason I was thinking about it was when Dalinar could see the tie between everybody that had the Oath Pact.
Mm-hmm.
He was nowhere near Shallan, so he couldn't necessarily see who it was attached to. She was in the cognitive realm at that time, wasn't she?
I don't remember when this was. But
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one.
But I also think it has a lot to do with her psychosis, like I said. So it's a lot of up in the air.
If
like,
this turns out to be true, like
That's tricky.
amazing.
Brandon is juggling
Right.
Like-
so many. It's hard to keep just these three perspectives straight with Shallan. So
She could be viewing herself as dead, so that's why Stormfather could have said, "Hey, the Herald's dead," like in essence, because she thinks she's Shallan now and not the Herald.
if Shallan was
Yeah.
so deeply
For me, that's a
recessed.
bridge too far.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's a completely insane theory
Yeah.
or something.
Well, it's a theory about somebody being completely insane.
Somebody would be like, oh yeah, mom is always this 5-year-old.
Well, that's the beauty of her power,
Mhm.
is that she's able to convince people very strongly of something. And we also know that she progressed really quickly with Testament. And we've always asked, why has a child been able to progress so quickly with Testament?
My guess would be it's the child of a herald.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's so trippy.
Do we know which herald was the herald that held the honor blade for light weaving?
Do we know which herald was the Lightweaver herald?
That's
that's
Shalash. Yes.
Shalash.
So would that in some way debunk this?
Not because you can become a radiant of the wrong order.
Because Nail's the only one that did his own.
There's a lot of speculation right now based on who the narrators are or the backstories are for the books. The only representative of one that's already been covered, which is Lightweavers, is Shalash is one of the backstories in the back 5.
And she's not an artist anymore. She's quite the opposite.
The only one that is missing is Dustbringers.
And she is someone who needs to go on a quest of self-mastery.
Yes.
And so I think she'd be a perfect Dustbringer.
That's of course speculation, and
I hadn't heard that one.
but that's what we're here for.
Could I throw out that Chanarach was the patron herald of the Dustbringers?
Yep.
Yes, she was.
Chanarach, what's Dustbringer one?
Which it would actually be appropriate for the daughter, or following your theory, or Chanarach herself to switch,
yeah.
and they would flip.
Yeah.
Ugh,
But
my head hurts.
what's that?
May I?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
come on up.
Since we're in Stormlight.
We're all over the place.
We're
We're good.
all over the place. Yeah, don't feel any bounds. Cosmere is unbounded.
This is a very long theory, but it's one I've been working on for a while. So we know that Shallan and Mraize are both hunting down Bada Mishram. And so Bada Mishram obviously is going to be an important part, most likely in Book 5. And so I started trying to figure out where is Bada Mishram. And through listening through some audiobooks, I've come to the conclusion that the gigantic spren that is in the Reshi Isles that Axis the Collector sees is, hear me out, is the dull form of Bada Mishram.
Okay.
That Malishi, the bondsmith, when he did what Dalinar did to the Thrill, he did not put her in a gemstone. He put her mind in a gemstone, and that's why the Parshmen were created, because it matched what happened to her.
Creating dull form.
Created a dull form. And so her body runs away in a fit of animalistic.
That means you have to have a body, and the unmade
Right. I'm using body in the best term I can.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
Her manifestation.
Yeah. So
her avatar.
Yeah. So you have this gigantic spren that was connected to a whole bunch of things, and now you have this spren that creates faces and is always looking in one direction at a particular time, which I theorize is the time that her mind was taken from her and is pointing in the direction where her mind is.
It's Brandon hasn't wasted any of his interludes. But there's several interludes that we still don't know like the purpose of, but a lot of them have become important later.
Yeah, like Rissyn, we had no idea
Yeah.
what was
Yeah.
going on with her, and then suddenly Dawn Shard comes out, and holy cow!
There is a word of Brandon about it though that it's not he's not on the sibling level. It's below that. So I know Nib would probably be below the sibling
possibly,
level.
yeah.
So below the sibling level. Okay. I was trying to make it so that people could hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, but I like that theory.
I
because-
like the direction that.
Oh my goodness.
Well, because we do know, because we've by looking at what Laris did as preservation, he destroyed his mind to get his advantage over AT.
Yeah.
And so we know Spren are cognitive beings, but they're cognitive beings that also can manifest in the physical realm. So using your idea of the mind being what's destroyed, if what they took is the part that is in the cognitive realm and what it's stuck with is the part that could manifest in the physical realm, could be.
And just imagine the scene of like Shalon and Moraes finding it, and that's activating the spren and starts running across Roshar, chasing them.
Oh man.
Amy's broken.
It's wonderful cinematics in my head. But I really wish I could draw better and just make it happen.
All right.
Any other theories?
One more quick
So
one.
come on up
Come
here
on up.
so that they can hear
Big
it.
fan of the podcast, by
Oh,
the way.
thank
thank you.
you.
Love your stuff every week. I showed up kind of late, so if you guys already talked about this, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But if Harmony does split in the Lost Metal back to Preservation and Ruin, do we think Sazed's dead, or do we think he's going to stick to one of them?
That's a good question. One of the things we talked about is something that somebody sent us in, where somebody talked about Wax picking up Ruin and Wayne picking up Preservation.
And then we theorized
And
that maybe
becoming
would
the shield
Steris
of
get,
Harmony.
would Steris get
Or
preservation?
Ster-
Or I don't know. That was my spin on
It's
it.
a very interesting angle that I haven't had enough time to really chew on
Yeah.
and digest. But
Brandon has said they can put down the shards willingly.
yes, that is true.
So
And
it's
he
also-
never wanted to hold on.
No, he didn't.
He was like, "Oh, here we go."
What are these?
Well, but the thing, I could easily see Harmony saying, I saw what doing this did to Laris and AT. And we get the line, AT used to be a good man. And we saw what it did to him. I could see him thinking, you know what? Holding on to the power this long is what is dangerous. And so what he wants to do is he wants to start grooming people to take it up for him so that no one gets to the point that Preservation and Ruin got to.
Yeah.
And so that'd be interesting, though.
Yeah.
Do you think the powers would inevitably split up though?
I don't think, because
I wouldn't say inevitably.
Yeah, I don't think inevitably. But he, yeah.
I just he said it would take a spiritual thing that would cause it to split apart. So I was thinking maybe the spiritual thing would be them always in discord with each other and forcing each other apart.
Because Ruin and Preservation are hard to balance.
Yeah.
Well, another idea with that is, like you said, discord with each other. That could just create how it's Harmony. It could have them together still, but it wouldn't be Harmony. It would be discord because they're clashing rather than matching.
So changing into discord instead of harmony because they've messed each other up enough that way. Yeah.
Can I make an observation also
Sure.
about Ruin and Preservation? Now, he talks about how they're the diametrically opposed ones, and I personally just think Ruin and Cultivation would be the diametrically opposed, but Preservation is right in the middle. It's the glue that would hold them together.
Does anyone else think of Xena when they hear Discord?
I think of the program because
Yeah,
we use
I
the
th-
program all the time.
we have a
originally.
Discord that our
that's why.
patrons join. So
Yeah. And it's been a while since I've seen Xena.
And if you would like to join our Patreon,
Then-
you get access to our Discord, and some of you don't have access to a wonderful place where you're going to be able to get out all your overreactions in the Lost Metal. So just saying.
We've got some great people
You can
over
see
there.
puppy pictures, kitty pictures. You can see cosplays in progress. You can see cool things. You can see
other-
horses.
you
There's a whole. It's a whole everything. It's
This
great.
ad brought to you by the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies.
And National Geographic for some reason.
Yeah.
'Cause why not?
Or Zoo Books. Yeah.
Zoo Books, yeah, and Zoo Books.
haven't thought about zoo books in 20 years.
I still have my zoo books. It's insane.
I still play
have too many
ads for
things.
zoo books on my stream because we sometimes play nostalgic commercials.
Okay, I don't think our listeners care
I'm
about
sorry.
But they're so cute.
Backing off that harmony comment, I was just wondering, this is a very short one.
Go for it.
Do we think that since Sazed combined ruin and preservation into harmony, that in the spiritual realm, since all times are one, the fact that they were combined made at the time of the shattering two diametrically opposed shards to allow it to happen?
Because they're both coexisting within multi-space or
Yes.
Oh, my brain breaks when people
If the
talk
future was
about
gonna
that.
happen, they broke off specifically so that they could come back together.
But what if it's a loop?
Yeah.
Oh
exactly.
goodness, time travel.
You were good with the spear because you were always good with the spear.
Yes. Yes.
It's sort of like inventing time travel, then going back in time and telling yourself how about time travel so that you can invent it.
It's the loop.
And then you go back in time and tell yourself about time travel so that you can invent it.
That's not the grandfather paradox. That's the one where you actually like.
It's a
are you all
stable time loop.
Yeah, stable time loop.
All right.
Except that there's a missing, what's the word?
Causality.
Yeah.
No, not there's a word. Anyway,
We'll figure it out later.
So the thing that's bothered me forever is why didn't Sazed fix the Southern Scadrians to not be so cold all the time?
I think he was overwhelmed. Is my guess is that fixing every.
He fixed the Northerners to not be short, squat.
So here's the thing. Sazed prepped himself by dumping in all the some knowledge that all the terracemen had ever put together. They had no knowledge on the Southern Scadrians. Now, the power remembers them, but you can tell, because even when Kelsier takes up the power, right before he gives it up to Vin, he takes one last moment where he lets himself feel all of Scadrial. And one of the things he's like, this, and the people in the South. But even the power thinks of them as the people in the South, the control group, the Petri dish. Well, they were the control group. That's how the Lord Ruler set it up.
Yeah, so I mean, but I kind of think because he's fixing the northern, and so then he's like, well, I just have to balance it over here and not make it so warm, and so he makes it cold, but he doesn't take as much time with it. But I don't know. I don't feel Sazed being that unfeeling.
I feel like he wasn't.
So it's.
I feel like he wasn't actively changing the Northern Scadrians. He was undoing what the Lord Ruler had done.
Yeah, and then I guess what would happen to the Southern Scadrians was a natural consequence.
Exactly. It was a naturally evolved thing.
Yeah, and so it's and it leads to the question of going back to secret history. It ends with Kelsier being like, "What do you think, Says? Can we get me a new string?" No, I do not think so. Pats him on the shoulder, walks away, and he's like, "Wow, he has the powers of creation in twain, and he's still a terrible liar." Now, Sazed would feel bad for what he did to the Southern Scadrians. What is the only way that he probably wouldn't interfere in Kelsier trying to get a new body? If Kelsier's like, hey, you need someone to go handle this.
Yeah, or
and
just.
Then Sazed's like,
I'm not going to say no.
I'm going to regret this,
Yep.
but okay.
Wait, sorry if I missed it, but did you guys wonder why he let it happen? Like, why
Yes.
Yeah, that's the.
That was the main question.
Because
it's a good question because I cry about it every single time I listen to it. When Wax and Sazed take that walk, and Wax literally walks, or Sazed literally walks Wax down the line where you asked me to let you shoot Lessie, and he's like, I wouldn't do that, and he shows him, you did, and he's like, and how long will you hate yourself for that? And you just see, Sazed has the worst job in the world. Like even something simple that it's been put. I've heard as an example of like why it would suck to be God. You have two guys on two islands who really need to get their stuff to these other islands. They both pray to God and say, "Can you give me a wind that
blows
helps
east
me?"
or blows
but
west.
Suddenly you have two people who are good men, both need help, and you can't.
Or even the more modern, relatable one. You have. But before a sports game, there are a lot of teams that will get together and they'll have a prayer beforehand.
Yeah.
But the other team's praying for the exact opposite result.
Who are you going to pick?
And so it's one of these things where being God is a sucker's game. It's stressful, and the worst thing for Sazed is that he's not really God. He just has all this power, and he's got to do something with it.
Well, he was a he was basically a priest who became an atheist who became a god.
Yeah.
That's a journey right there.
So
also to kind of go off of the issue of what Vin and Ruin had in their battle, it's like they were fighting and they were destroying the world as they were fighting. They weren't really paying attention to what they were doing. They were just fighting.
Yeah.
So I think the concept is the same with Seiza. His horse blinders were on as far as getting certain things done, that by the time he did that, he lost his agency to be able to do anything else. And so he was just kind of like, all right, well, they're going to stay the way they are.
Yeah, he had a certain amount of time to get whatever he was going to do done. And honestly, there was nobody better prepared than he was, but even he was still a man.
It's still a hard job and decision to make.
So around Seiza's impotency, right? Like, it always felt weird that he's so shackled, and it almost seems self-imposed to a degree. Like if he changed how he thought about his powers a little, he might be able to. But I always thought having a Shardic level threat, whereas right now everything has been like, oh, mundane human nonsense, would allow him to now focus and let his preservation side protect the world, and let his ruin side really come out and play a little. And I'm really hoping that's what comes up.
You think that's what Trell is
like,
going
I
to
hope
become?
that's what Trell inspires. Like, he realizes that, hey, he's been suppressing his ruin side for so long, and that's what's kept him from working. And I think it would fit with his own philosophy of, like, I want to let the world go as they should.
He wants to be the
not
clockwork.
Interfere.
Yeah.
But once there's a power that threatens it, that's beyond their ability to handle, he comes in and
You come into my house.
He came into my sandbox.
From a meta perspective, I don't see that being the solution, because then the story is a story of gods, and what can these small mortals do?
Mistborn is a story of humanity.
Yeah. That secondly, at the very end of Bands of Mourning, when we see the wrong faceless immortals, they tell Suit that the technology is progressing too far and it's now too dangerous. So whoever they're working for, it's not the gods that they're worried about. It's the mortals.
Well, that's the other thing that was mentioned in Era 2. It's really interesting because Harmony was also, when he's talking to Wax, he's like, I've made it too easy. They should have advanced beyond this point. So basically, the development of technology on Scadrial is all out of whack at this point.
Well, because you had Lord Ruler
stagnated it for 1,000 years. Harmony made it so easy that they didn't need to stress beyond, but then he's trying to counterbalance it, and now it's sort of speeding up. And so it's just sort of, we don't know what's going to happen. It's bizarre right now.
Like, in terms of what you were saying about the meta piece, that would become a fight of gods, I would say he's still handicapped because Trell is not, like if we think Trell is autonomy is not converging on Scadrial about to destroy it, right? So this is still working through her agents, and that's why he's still kind of handicapped in that regard. But if Odium or autonomy or some other shard would have come in full force, maybe in Era 4 when there's a space invasion, then he can really play. But like, he would have to figure out a way, maybe Wax is his way, it's his ruin, he can do the same thing that the other shards do.
Yeah. Jordan, are you the one who said, like, I heard somebody say that they think that the overarching, the big bad of the entire Cosmere is actually not Odium, not autonomy, it's Whimsy.
I'm terrified. That's the one I'm most terrified. Whimsy and Mercy are the most terrifying shards.
Because misdirected, they can be just
Whimsy by itself is so destructive. Everyone knows someone who lives their life by whimsy alone, and they're always a walking disaster of a person. Like, and now let's give them godlike powers. That's not going to go well.
You forget the other threat, Stick.
No.
Stick will save us all.
He's got this. No, and then
I was at a TikTok earlier. It was great.
Mercy is the other one that I'm terrified of, because Mercy untempered by any other virtue.
It's scary.
That's an issue. I saw someone back there.
What if Whimsy went to Threnody?
What if Whimsy went to Threnody? Oh.
Well, we already saw the breaking of ambition not on Threnody, but in
the Threnodite system.
Yeah, and that
we already
caused
saw
problems.
the problems that brought. So Whimsy could be the ultimate wild card.
Yeah.
Speaking of ambition, is it pretty much confirmed that Mercy is actually the one who finished ambition off?
We don't. We
I
know
feel
Mercy.
like it
We now
was.
know Mercy was there.
Yes.
We don't know what that means.
If Mercy was just watching, or we don't have anything very firm on that.
Because it's like
Who?
Ambition's injured.
Yes, Odium's the
Yes.
one that's. We think Odium's the one that splintered.
It's like Ambition is there, hurt, and Mercy comes in. It's like, oh, you poor thing.
Yeah, and that's I'm like
You're
I
suffering.
subscribe to that theory. I think that's perfectly fine. We know that it's interesting. Who does Odium go after first? He's going after Ambition, then he goes after, or is it Demotion and Dominion?
He goes
first?
after.
Devotion, Dominion.
Yeah, Devotion and Dominion first.
Yeah, and then the
Ambition.
next one, Ambition. It's like, yeah, that makes sense.
These are the ones who could possibly.
And I think he would have gone
pose a
after
threat.
Ruin next if Ruin hadn't been there with Preservation.
Yeah.
And I believe there's a word of Brandon, Nebulous. It's one of those word of Brandons that said that he went after Devotion, Dominion first because he could not find Ambition.
I don't know that one.
I had not heard that one.
But it was also because I think they had broken the rule of,
Yeah.
they were together and working
Lesser
together.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what's scary is if
But,
they're together.
He just said, basically. You're talking about in the Q&A? Yeah.
Okay, we didn't get to see the Q&A, so go ahead.
There's a while during the Q&A about that. Yeah, in the Q&A, someone asked a question along the lines of why are they able to break that rule? And it's because the shards make an agreement. If two shards later on make an agreement like, hey, we're going to stay here on this planet together, then that is allowed. And
Okay.
so that brings up a
And-
whole host of new questions.
He said that's why Odium could go in, because Honor and Cultivation and Odium had an agreement, he said. That's why
Which
they
is
lost.
the Oath Pact and
I
everything around it.
misheard. I thought he was saying that because they all broke those sets broke the agreement, that gave Odium an in and almost permission from the other shards.
No,
He
it
said
was-
Odium had an agreement with the other two.
It was if there. So there's this agreement that they can't be on the same planet as other shards, or
They have to stay apart. Yeah.
Yeah, y'all go your
non-intervention
separate ways.
clause. Yeah.
if those two shards later on say, "Hey, we agree that we're going to come together on this planet and be together," then that is okay if they come to an agreement.
Was he saying that only those two don't have an edge over each other, or other shards that have an edge over those shards?
That's what I heard to say. The other shards
Sounds like we're going to have to wait for this to be written down so we get the correct verbiage.
Like,
Yeah,
if, like,
we'll wait for the.
three shards went on a planet and not all three of them agreed to go there, then it would be a problem.
Yeah, then there's a problem. If they all say yes, then it's fine. But if any one of them says no, that's when the problem.
So yeah,
comes,
as
because
soon
then
as
it's a broken agreement.
as soon
basically
as
they've all
consent
got-
is revoked, then nothing works.
So
Then
basically,
there's
what
a
you're
problem.
saying is they've got mutual restraining orders,
Yep. Yes.
and they can choose to remove those restraining
Revoke
orders.
consent at any time.
But isn't that Odium? Isn't that the problem? Because he came without an agreement.
He did come with permission. That was
No,
the very end of the
Honor. That was what was crazy about this is Honor and Cultivation gave him permission to come.
Oh, because Honor wanted to trap him there, so he couldn't
Yes.
go
Yes.
So what my
Oh,
theory is
man.
that the agreement that they made was Honor was like, okay, I'll let you come here if you promise not to leave.
Well, and that's an interesting thing because we know that Cultivation she's a puppet master type of character. So
She's a dragon.
Circling back to your story of not about gods, but about humans. What if it really is about the gods and the actual battle between Odium and Ambition was Ambition had the upper hand, Mercy came in and forced Mercy upon Odium, turn your back and get stabbed in the back and destroyed.
It could be. Like, this is why Mercy is a terrifying virtue untempered by anything else.
Because him going after Ambition, like he could tell the other shards, "Oh, I'm just punishing the ones who broke our original agreement and came together." But Ambition was by herself.
Yeah. No,
So that
Ambition was just a threat.
Was just a threat. But I always thought Dominion should have been a bigger threat to him, which I guess that's why he killed.
Dominion first, yeah.
I did find that wild. That was aforementioned by some ruggedly handsome gentleman. Okay, this is.
He has great fashion sense, too.
Oh, great. Absolutely fantastic. Anyways, Argent says, okay, so did Raze choose the other shards because, Brandon, he went after Ambition first, but didn't find Ambition until after going after
Dominion and Devotion.
and Devotion. But Ambition was #1 on his hit list.
Okay.
I do remember that quote now, yeah.
There's nothing more terrifying than untempered ambition.
Yeah.
Oh, another thing from the questioning today, which I found interesting, was someone asked what the pronouns were for Iona and Sky, and he said she are for both. So I think a lot of
Sky
theories
was
were
Sky was female.
that Sky, yeah,
Really, I did not
there's
know
a lot
that.
of theories where Sky was male, and maybe it was a sibling relationship this time, but apparently they're both female.
The direct quote was, "I haven't written the books yet."
Yes, but that's how he picked.
He might change his mind.
Yeah, and he does that, and he has changed his mind on several of them. So. I was not aware
So
of
what
that.
if they were sisters before they took up shards?
Could
Or
be, which is also
besties,
very
you never
possible.
know.
Very, very possible.
Or absolute strangers.
Because we never knew why they came together. Ruin and Preservation, we know why they came together, but why did those two feel the need to?
Well, that would explain the shards too. If they're sisters, devotion, dominion, older sister, younger sister.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it could be anything.
There
That's
are
the
some
issue.
We just don't know yet.
parallels, Yeah.
No, there's some interesting stuff with them, and it doesn't help that it's literally the first book he wrote.
Yeah.
Not wrote, but
Published.
Published.
Yeah.
So it's been a while since we've seen anything on there. So we have all sorts of questions on Elantris.
Well, and we know that there is an Elantris sequel, 2 Elantris sequels, I think, in the future, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
there's
we
the
also know
novella.
that we're going to see Shy again at some point. So.
Another one of the interesting things that I found from the questionnaire was that someone asked about how Odium was able to overcome so many other shards, and they were like, "Is it because he has something extra?" And he said no, but then he was like, "Are you asking if he has an edge?" And he was like, "Because if you're asking if he has an edge, then you're correct. He has had an edge over them," which was interesting to me because it's like he doesn't have any more power in the shard itself, but he still has an edge, which means it's something that the other shards are doing with their own power rather than resisting.
Brandon actually has mentioned, and now this was a long time ago, so who knows what's evolved since then, but people were asking a similar question, and there was just like, so all the shards, their power is equal? He said yes. He's like, so how could they beat him? He's like, each individual shard has equal power, and there's like, so did Odium have an ally? And he just sort of grinned. He was like, that's an interesting question. No confirmation, no nothing like that. But
in a later question, he also said that Ruin, and he emphasized edge over preservation too. So.
Which I think implied broken agreement.
well, we know that Ruin had an edge over Preservation because Preservation put more of himself into humanity to create allomancy.
That's why he made an emphasis 2 questions later.
And that was what I heard out of the Q&A, was the more you shatter yourself as a shard, the less power you hold as a shard to maybe to have control over it. Which is Odium has shattered himself less, he has more power.
Which he hasn't invested anywhere at that point, especially.
Yeah, well, there's also that matters. The longer the conflict, the more that matters.
Yeah.
Like small edges matter over long conflicts. Big edges matter over small conflicts. So, I worry for Endowment.
Yeah, I was going to say Endowment has been splintering herself
a lot
with each individual Nathian.
Yeah, and so I worry about her, but because I think she has not broken any agreements and she's stayed alone, she is she has a strong base to work from.
Well, and Endowment was one of the letters to Hoyt, correct?
Yeah, and it was basically just no.
She was all about just non-intervention. Just we said we weren't going to talk to each other. We weren't going to interact with each other. Just stick to it. And so.
I think it still circles back to the broken agreements, though.
Which is possible.
Because he also mentioned that Hoyt explicitly said in book 3, Stormlight 3, that he was breaking some rules. And then he explicitly said in the Q&A, that's why he was able to be impacted at the end of book 5. Or 4, sorry, book 4.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I know, I'm in the future, by the way. But at the end of book 4, not just because it was part, an SD card is what he was calling it, but also because of these specific rules that were set up in agreement that he was breaking. So it kind of circles back to the edge that everyone has. Even though they're making these agreements together, they're still breaking the overall agreement.
Well, we also have from Secret History, after Hoyd beats up Kelsier and gets the medal, and then finally Preservation shows up and he's like, "What happened?" And he's like a guy with white hair and hawkish face, and he's like, "Yeah, Sifandrius," and he's like, "You can't." He's like, you can hardly trust anything, you know, he says. Is like even things he agrees to. So, yeah.
I could also totally see endowment being threatened in a specific way. If, say, Odium made a point like, well, some breaths have been on other shards or on other worlds, and those are a part of you. Therefore, you've broken the rules, and I can come in. And
It feels a little rules lawyery to me.
Just so our listeners are aware. So they were basically saying that endowment might be particularly vulnerable to this because she has splintered herself and given breaths to the Nalthians, and Nalthians have left Nalthis and brought breaths with them. You know, the experience, the examples we've got Azure, we've got Hoyd, who isn't a Nalthian, but he has breaths.
Yeah. Well, and the one thing we have in the conversation that Race Odium has with Dalinar, he says, I'm not honor who's going to, you know, sit down to the letter of the law. Like, I will honor it in spirit. And to me, breaths getting off, not because what she's done, but what people with free will have done, to me seems a little too...
But it's Terravangian now, right? It's not Rays.
Yeah.
So that's kind of...
Yeah.
Guy who's more open to the means to the ends kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
tweaking things.
Would Todium be like, your investiture killed my predecessor?
Man, if he does that, she's gonna be like, "That is so rich."
The one who used it.
Yeah.
I know what I was doing.
We also haven't brought this up since Todium came around, but Raze was not Raze. Sorry, I get their names because they're so.
There's a lot of names.
Yeah. Raze was about not adding to his power, but is Teravangian not about that?
It's a question.
That is something that's we're all wondering right now.
Yeah, because we don't know anything about what Teravangian as a shard now wants to do with that power.
What's the very first word that we get from the diagram? The very first word is you need to become the ruler of everything. And we had no clue how small. Because we now know how far the diagram actually was looking out. And now that man has pure future sight.
So you see terror out of nauseam.
It could I don't know.
It's not pure future sight.
Yeah.
Because Race could not see.
I'm not saying it's complete and perfect. I just mean like he has actual future sight now.
But we also know that again, Races isn't perfect.
No,
and Races is far below some of the other.
But here's the other scary thing: who found out that that Odium couldn't see Renarin? Teravangian. So he knows
he's got a blind spot.
That's his blind spot,
well,
which is scarier.
The other thing,
I am terrified for Renarin.
The other thing, though, is Teravangian is also the kind of person who is willing to make assumptions and act on them. And 99% of the time, he's right. That 1% of the time could be very dangerous.
He is a shard with less than full power.
Yeah.
Just him being a shard is scary. It's just not okay.
Have we still established why he couldn't see Renarin? Is it because Renarin has competing future sight?
I think it's because of.
I think that's why.
Oh, see,
I think anybody with future sight be kind of invisible.
Any truth watchers?
I think it's like Atium.
I personally think that it has a bit to do with Gliss, and what Syatanat did to Gliss.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, which is what gave him the future sight.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
we're fairly certain it's what gave him the future sight. But no, but I think it's mostly due to the same thing as when two Mistborn burn Atium. You can't.
That there's competing.
Yeah.
Things.
Now, but this is a different version of the same principle.
Yeah. But.
Wouldn't that?
No, I mean he might be on the same thought process, but like, wouldn't that mean that he can't see any of the shards, or maybe some of the shards that can see better future sight?
Well, we've seen examples of that in because that's what preservation did to Ruin. We've also seen that's what cultivation did to Odium.
Cultivation terrifies me.
I think by the end of this, Cultivation won't not be the bad guy, but might be the antagonist.
I don't think that she will be a villain, but I think she will be definitely an antagonist.
I worry about someone who makes plans that are that, and she's done it by interfering so little. She gave gave things to Lift, to Dalinar, to Taravangian, and I
just went.
Yeah, well, I did a whole Reddit thread where I tried to like look at all the things that changed, and you start looking at that. Like the diagram is created, like everything with Moash goes back to the diagram because remember that's who recruited him back in Words of Radiance.
It reminds me a little bit of if you've ever read the Patrick Rothfuss King Killer books. I don't remember the specifics, and I'm not going into details because I don't want to spoil for anyone who hasn't read. But there is a fey creature there that you're never supposed to speak to, because no matter what he says to you, it will lead you to the path of the most pain and suffering for you. Whether he tells you to do something or tells you not to do something. Well, Steve tells you not to do something, but you're supposed to. He's just got the double think and the triple think and the quadruple think down so well that no matter what you do in response, it's going to lead you down the worst path. And it's the same sort of concept of what cultivation is. She just has planned so well. She's just planted little seeds and cultivated them and let them grow a little bit, and things are happening. And I think it's a terrifying thought.
Do we think she Lady Macbeth honor to get him killed?
I don't think she would have done it. I don't think she would have done it maliciously, but
maybe in like it's either me or him, and
or because of we know they have a child. It's literally called the sibling, and I could definitely see them both agreeing. Like if she's like, "You have to die for our kids to survive."
Yeah, there's also the Stormfather.
Yeah,
and,
I could see them being like, "Okay," but and that's a completely natural solution.
Yeah.
And it's like, don't worry, I'll finish them off. Okay, as long as you finish them off.
I think the reason honor instead of cultivation was the one that was splintered in the first place was probably because like honor put himself more into men than any of the other shards on the planet. So that goes back again
similar to preservation.
To the preservation thing. Preservation put himself more into the men, which gave Ruin an edge. So here on Roshar, honor puts himself into men, which gives
while cultivation retains her full power and thus
which
can
gives Odium an edge over honor.
Okay.
The Radiants are a mix of both of them.
They are, but
yes.
So with the boon, she's putting something in, but she's taking it with the curse, kind of thing.
Could be just the honorable thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, the honorable sacrifice, as it were.
That's true. But that almost felt like an afterthought. She's like, oh yeah, this is supposed to have a curse. Okay.
The other thing is that cultivation is a dragon.
So dragon,
So dragon, exactly. No one understands how dragons think.
Ask maybe a dumb question. Where did we learn that about cultivation?
So we learned about that in book 4. And it was a lot of it was put together by little clues that had been dropped, because Hoyd was talking about how he only knew of one dragon, I think, that
on Roshar.
Roshar. The name Corvellium Avast apparently is draconic in and then of course it was confirmed in A Word of Brandon.
There's another dragon too.
Frost.
Yes.
And he's written to Hoyd.
Yeah,
So.
and he's apparently never left Yolen.
Yeah.
So what's up with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get a chance, look for, it's a very, very brief scene. It's called, is it The Traveler or The Wanderer? I can never remember.
I think it's The Traveler. I think it's Traveler. Just
Yeah,
Google for it.
It's definitely worth checking out. It's just a very brief conversation between Hoyd and Frost. And it's immediately after the events of the Hero of Ages.
So that's the other thing people sometimes forget. One,